the Leafs were in on Adam Henrik before he signed in Edmonton. Also, what is the next move for Treliving and the Leafs? We're going to break all this stuff down for you coming up in this live. And shout out to everybody who's here already. The 21 of you here in the chat right now. Appreciate all you guys showing up for the start of the stream. And yeah, I'm KC. This is Mark Pye. And we're Hattrick HQ. With that said, Mark, let's just dive right into the first topic of the live today, which is Leafs were in on Henrik. And yes, we got a major report from Leafs reporter Chris Johnston, where he said they were in on Skinner, which, if you've seen the video earlier today, Mark covered that. So we're here to talk about Adam Henrik, because Chris Johnston says they were definitely having conversations and were in on Henrik. And Mark, I mean, this is huge. I mean, if we just jump into his stats here, just 1 second. If the Leafs ended up getting Henrik.
Yeah, I thought Henrik would have been the perfect third line center for this team. Obviously, Max Domi's a guy that's going to get a lot of time on the third line. We're going to see Domi bounce around, but I thought Domi was kind of better off on a wing. I enjoyed him a lot playing with Mitch Marner. I enjoyed him playing with Austin Matthews. He jumped around this lineup, but I think Henrik would have been that nice veteran that can still produce for you. I mean, we've seen him do it with the Oilers just last playoffs. So getting him would have been awesome. Jeff Skinner was another guy I liked, but it seemed like the Oilers really had their guys. They went out and got both of them, sadly.
Yeah, I know, right? They got both of them, which, you know, isn't a big shock. I mean, it would have been nice to have him because he looked to really get his edge back once he moved to Edmonton, and it would have been really nice to see that on the Leafs. And I think he really could have impacted this bottom six for the Leafs. And we could, you know, if it wasn't for Edmonton, we'd be talking about him on the Leafs right now.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I thought Skinner was a guy that could have came in, played with Matthews and Marner, and maybe had another 30, 35, or 40 goal season. It's a guy that's hungry to make the playoffs. I mean, we've never seen Jeff Skinner in the playoffs because he's never made it. So getting him would have been great. Henrik, like I said, would have been the perfect third line center. But like I said, it seems like the Oilers have a tight-knit group. They had Henrik last year. It seems like they convinced him enough to stay. And Skinner seemed like playing with McDavid was the better choice than Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. But it's only time will tell on which team does better.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely going to be interesting. Maybe we'll get to see Edmonton and Toronto in the final. I mean, can you imagine that? The Cup's definitely coming home then, Mark.
Yeah, I hope so.
But we're going to get into why everybody joined up here, and that is to talk about what the Leafs are going to do next. And obviously, the next move for Treliving is what's on everybody's mind right now, Mark. And, you know, it's a big question. Nobody really knows what's next for Brad Treliving, what's next for the Leafs, but it's looking like they're going to be going after a forward. That's kind of the only hole they have left to fill, especially now, you know, shoring up that blue line. And the first name that kind of jumped off the page for me today, Mark, was former Leaf, JVR, James Van Riemsdyk. Yes, he is 35 years old right now, but could definitely help out the bottom six of the Toronto Maple Leafs. In 71 games last season, he had 38 points, 11 goals, 27 assists, 142 shots, and she was shooting about 7.7% on the season with 13 minutes time on ice. So, Mark, I mean, you know JVR, you've been a long time Leaf fan. How do you feel about a 35-year-old JVR coming back to play with the Leafs?
The biggest thing with JVR when he played with the Leafs was his net front presence. He's not a guy that's going to go out and be an absolute pest to everyone, but his hand-eye was incredible. This is a guy that can get shots tipped. I feel like 50% of his goals he scored as a Leaf was in front of the net, tipping something. So having a 1-2 punch with him and Tavares doing this almost exact same role, I thought or will be perfect if they ended up getting him. He's a guy that could fill in the void on the third line. I mean, the Nick Robertson saga continues on, so we don't know who's going to be there. But I'm not sure how much more he has to give at this age. I feel like JVR would be the perfect kind of bottom six guy that can fill in here and there. But I'm not sure how I feel about JVR getting a full 82 games, on this Leafs team, but I mean, he could change my mind. He could come in and score 20 goals, but on a cheap contract, coming home, retiring as a Leaf would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, he could definitely come in. You can get him in on a cheap contract. Seeing him retire in Toronto would be amazing. I mean, we're just going to take a look at the chat here. We got Daniel in there saying, Mark and Casey, what's up? Shout out to you, Daniel. Day one supporter here on the channel. Love seeing you down in the chat. We also got Mark saying, seems like the Leafs are finally making some good decisions, and aren't they ever? I mean, this has been, one of the most exciting free agencies. Yes, they might have not added the biggest name out there, but they've done their due diligence. Mark also said here for like 5 years, their Canadian teams just would not work on their defense. And Brad Treliving, he has justified the odds here by working on defense, hasn't he, Mark?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I found like Treliving's really winning. And yes, the forwards still need work. Yes, there's sure it might be another trade coming in on moving out contracts to acquire that middle six guy. But Brad Treliving went out there, fixed the defense. He wanted to focalize on this, and he really did. I mean, we're seeing the depth signings and Philip Myers coming in at 6'7", a guy that's a fringe NHL player. We're seeing Chris Tanev come in, Hawk and Paw, even though that situation's a little awkward. But overall, Treliving really focused on the defense, and I think it's just a matter of time before we see trades for him to really shore up the offense.
Yeah, definitely. I think if they want to bring in not a star, but a solid, say, middle six guy, they're going to have to move out some cap to make that work. Because right now, they don't have much breathing room there in Toronto with the cap situation. But it'll be interesting to see what they do nonetheless. But we got an interesting one from Chadwick here in the chat. I don't know if you've seen it, Mark. He said the Leafs might make a move on Crosby, Robertson, Noah Chadwick, Liljegren, Kev, and Mitten for Crosby 50% retained contract, that then have it trimmed down to 25% contract by a third party. Good luck, Leafs. Mark, what do you think about Sid the Kid coming into the Leafs for that big of a deal?
I would take him in a heartbeat. I think he'd be the missing piece. Obviously, if you put Sidney Crosby on any contending team, they're going to even be better. But I think Crosby's an interesting one. It seems like Kyle Dubas and company are handling this weird. They're bringing in veterans. They're still trying to get young at the same time. I mean, they went out and traded for Kevin Hayes, his big contract at the age of 32. So I don't know if Crosby ever wants to leave the Pittsburgh organization. But if they do miss out on the playoffs in the next year, the next 2 years, maybe we'll see something come up where Crosby looks at this team and says, hey, I want to go somewhere. I want to contend. I want one more Stanley Cup. If that was the Leafs, I would be tickle pinked. If that was the Canucks, I'd be very happy as well. But I think it's a matter of time, and I think it's really up to Kyle Dubas on how he manages this team if Crosby ever leaves.
Yeah, that would definitely be really interesting to see Crosby in Toronto. No doubt about it. I mean, it would just, I think it would just break the internet, honestly. If Crosby went to Toronto, the streets of Toronto would be filled, going to the stores to get their number 87 jersey for sure. But I'd love to see it because I just love chaos, and I think that would just make for a lot of chaos. But I'm going to say a controversial take here, and it might get some of the guys riled up in the chat. I'm going to say Ovi over Crosby every day of the week.
I don't know about this team. I think Crosby's the missing piece. Ovi would be outstanding, but I think we already have the goal scoring in Matthews, Tavares, Nick Robertson, if he decides to stay in, William Nylander. But I think that true leader, the center that can do everything for you, the jack of all trades, the master of all, it feels like with Sidney Crosby, would be the better option in my point for the Leafs.
Yeah, Ryan's saying here in the chat, how about the Leafs get Morgan Frost for Nick Robertson? I like that one. That's one that I really like. I really think Morgan Frost is very underrated and could really help this team out a lot. And he's still young, and he can have time to improve with this team.
Yeah, because the biggest thing is, I feel like everyone's talking about, yes, the Leafs need that left winger to kind of fill in the gap. Bobby McMahon's on the left side. Matthew Nyes. Domi's a guy that can play the left. I'd love to see Domi on that second line on the left wing. So bringing in a guy like Frost to play center or the wing on the left side would be good. It's going to be a young guy. It's a guy that still has more to give, more to learn. And I think a lot of players the Leafs might trade for might be hungry. The Flyers team's not a team that has been making playoffs pushes. So maybe he gets a taste of the NHL playoffs and wants to contribute more. Maybe we see a 20-goal season, 25-goal season. But I think the Nick Robertson situation should be resolved soon. And I think it's going to be a big one as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it'd be good for both sides. This trade, obviously, Nick Robertson wants out, but Brad Treliving doesn't want to let go of him because he knows how good of a player he is. But it would be good for Nick Robertson. He'd, definitely get in that lineup in Philly. He get to show what he's made of. Then Morgan Frost, like you said, gets a taste of the playoffs. Max Domi's like a Swiss Army knife. You could have him slide to the wing. You could have Frost slide to the wing, and this could really help contribute throughout the bottom six of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Mark, there's another UFA who we need to talk about here, and that is Tyler Johnson. We're going through the list of UFAs today, and we were saying, hey, Tyler Johnson seems like a great pickup for the Leafs. Obviously, 67 games this year, had 31 points. He's on a little bit of a decline now at 33 years of age, but still has it in him, in my opinion. He had 112 shots, averaging 15 minutes time on ice. Mark, I think Tyler Johnson could be a very interesting pickup for Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it kind of leads into more of the Morgan Frost thing. You're getting a guy like Tyler Johnson that can come in, play that third line center role just to let Domi be able to kind of roam around the lineup. If that's the top line right wing, top line left wing, second line left wing, or third line left wing. I think the biggest thing would be looking for this new center. I know a big thing is Pontus Holmberg's a guy that's developing. I would love to see him get into this lineup. I know David Kampf is kind of taking over that fourth line spot. But if you move and get a guy like Tyler Johnson, you could kind of use him as that stopover gap to bring in a guy like Holmberg to finally take over the third spot maybe next year or the year after. But the Leafs need to fill that third line center. I like Domi on the wing a lot more. I do think Domi can play third line center, but I almost like him as that playmaking wing that's going to fly up the boards and be a pest more than just kind of roaming the center of the ice.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I got a question for the guys in the chat here. Who is your favorite offseason signing by Brad Treliving so far? We'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that down below in the chat. We'd like to discuss that with you guys. But back to Tyler Johnson, I really like this ad. I think right now the Leafs could add a little veteran to kind of help them get through the playoffs and just be a mentor for the young guys in the dressing room. And I think Tyler Johnson, at 33 years of age, still has a lot to produce. And I think, taking a shot at him in Toronto could be very interesting.
Yeah, and I seen someone down in the comments saying bring Bozak in with JVR. I'd be happy to have a fourth line of Bozak, JVR, and Phil the Thrill. I think this would reunite a lot of Leafs fans. Might not be the best line in 2024, but I think it'd be awesome just to see these guys suit up again, or maybe even bring in Jay McClement, Colton Orr, and a guy like Fraser McLaren again.
Yeah, Fraser McLaren, bring him back. What a beauty that guy is. I'd love to see him back for sure. But yeah, that'd be interesting. I want to see Phil back in the NHL. He's still got a lot left in him. Come on, get him out of vet bin, someone. Someone got to sign this guy. We love Phil here on the channel. But there is another guy here, Mark, who we're going to talk about. And that is Daniel Sprong. This guy's going to be a little bit more of an expensive option, but with the right trade to free up the cap, it could definitely happen. In 76 games, he had 43 points, 18 goals, 25 assists. At 27 years old, he's still looking like a good player out there. Could definitely contribute a lot. At 27, still in the prime of his career as well. Just getting on a star-studded Maple Leafs roster could definitely help this guy produce a lot more, Mark.
Yeah, because the big thing with Sprong, it seems like he's such a good player. He gets the next step every year, takes a step back, and then finds a new team. He's a guy that I feel like is on different rosters almost every season. I know he was on Detroit, to the Kraken, and so on. But Daniel Sprong would be awesome. A guy that, like you said, scored 18 goals this past season. He could come in, score instantly on this offense. If you wanted to put him next to a playmaker like Max Domi, I think his value would be even higher. But I think he might outprice himself. I know there's a lot of teams with more cap. I think I've seen the Calgary Flames have 22 million left over. So I don't know if the Leafs can win a bidding war on this guy, but with the days going on and the free agency getting shorter, maybe we see him take a cheaper deal to come into the Leafs offense, try to get that second step, and then secure himself a bigger deal for the future.
Yeah, can you imagine the Calgary Flames having 22 million cap? I mean, they're going to turn into a retirement home with all these old players left in the UFA, but they're definitely going to figure out something there in Calgary. But I do like Daniel Sprong pick up to Toronto. I think that could be very interesting. I think, like you said, he could contribute to this bottom six, get in on the offense where he can. Maybe you pair him up with, Matthew Nyes, a younger guy, maybe something like this. That could definitely be interesting. But Mark, there's one who I didn't tell you about who I wanted to surprise you with here, and that is Alex Nylander. What do we think about that? I mean, at 28 games last year, he had 15 points, 11 goals, 4 assists. Pure goal scorer, this guy. 72 shots, averaging 16 minutes time on ice. And at 26 years old, he's just getting into the prime of his career. Obviously, the brother of Willie Styles. Can you imagine a Nylander brother reunion in Toronto?
First off, I want to say we've seen Kyle Dubas take the Pittsburgh team over. He traded Nylander. It wasn't the one he wanted to trade it for all these years, but he did move a Nylander brother. I thought he looked good on Columbus last year in the second half of the season. Obviously, he's still a bit of a project. He's a guy that hasn't found his footing. I know a lot of fans that hate Nylander would lose their mind having to watch a Nylander to Nylander line. But the biggest thing with Nylander is he could come in, be with his brother, learn from him, learn in this Leafs system. Maybe we see some untapped potential. I mean, we've seen Willie getting his contract, scoring these 40 goals, looking explosive in the playoffs. So maybe Alex just needs to be with his big bro, to be on this team, to figure things out. I think it'd be a nice depth signing. I wouldn't give him a one-way, maybe a two-way contract. Let him prove himself, go down to the Marlies, come up to the Leafs, whatever it might be. But I think the Leafs will definitely look at him, especially to keep a guy like William Nylander happy.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be so fun to see. I would just love to see the Nylander connection in Toronto. Give him a shot. I think it would just be really fun to see. At 26, he still has a lot to prove, and have him in Toronto with his brother would just be amazing. That would also break the internet as well. I think that would be fun. But LJ here in the chat says he thinks if the Leafs they have to add by trade now. The UFAs are looking pretty thin. A lot of people are putting Nick Robertson's name out there in the chat as someone who could be traded. There's still a lot of rumors about Mitch Marner, but I don't think he's going anywhere, Mark. I think, with Brad Treliving offering him up to Jeff Skinner as someone who he could play with, it kind of seems like the plan for Marner is to continue with him into the future.
Yeah, it seems like with Craig Berube coming in, they're not going to jump the ship on Mitch Marner yet. Mitch Marner is a guy, yes, fans are mad at him. Yes, people aren't happy with how he played in the playoffs. But just 2 seasons ago, he was third in Selke voting. This is a guy that can get you 99 points on wing. I know it's sad that he's never broken 100, but he has got to 99 points. So having one of the top defensive wingers on your team, you're not going to find the true value. If I'm looking at players they might trade out to add at the left wing position, the guys that come to mind is Connor Timmins, David Kempf, and Nick Robertson as you requested the trade. So maybe you package these guys together with prospects, picks, whatever it might be. You free up roughly $4 million, maybe a little bit more on this. So maybe you can go and pick up the winger that everyone wants. It's going to get quite interesting, but honestly, I think Treliving's cooking something. He hasn't signed a free agent winger yet. He hasn't changed the forwards at all. And I think it's just a matter of time before he makes that kind of just seismic trade.
Yeah, definitely. I think something's definitely brewing in Toronto. In the forwards, I think he's got his D set now. I don't think he wants to touch that. He's got his goaltending set. Doesn't want to touch that. What's next? It's the forward group. And I think in heavy conversation with him and Craig Berube, they're going to find something out here, find the perfect fit, find the guy they can get in Toronto that's going to fit Craig Berube's system perfectly. And, the casualty of that may be a Nick Robertson. I think he's the odd man out here to me, but they do also have, a few picks. They don't have a lot that they can move out as well to bring in some guys. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. Ryan in the chat is saying, how if they sign Max Pacioretty? I mean, I'd hate to see that as a Montreal fan. We can't see Max Pacioretty patches in a Leafs jersey.
I mean, it'd be awesome when we've seen Thomas Buchanan come to the Leafs and play his last playoff game in the NHL with the Toronto Maple Leafs and not the Montreal Canadiens. But Pacioretty is a weird one. If you asked me this when Pacioretty wasn't coming off his ACL injury, yes, in a heartbeat. But the problem with him, and I think it leads back to a lot of these other guys, is they seem like more of a depth signing like JVR. Someone getting up in age, coming off injuries, not being in the prime anymore. I'd love to see these guys coming as just kind of fifth line forwards, guys you can put in when injuries occur, guys to have in this locker room. I mean, we've seen Ryan Reeves do it throughout the year. He's getting paid a little more than I want from a guy that's doing that. But bringing a guy like Pacioretty, JVR, these guys would be awesome as the extra skater, the scratched guy to have with his team and use in a pinch.
Yeah, 100%. I'd like to see that as well. Let us know in the chat some of your dream trades here. What are you cooking up? What is your mock trade down below in the chat? We'd like to see your guys. Well, Ryan is saying also, what if they sign Philip Sedina? I think that could be cool as well, but I think, it seems like that contract would be a little bit too much for Toronto to handle.
I think Zadina would be cool. If I'm thinking of the right guy, he's 6'5" and was traded out of Detroit or left Detroit to go over to, I believe, the San Jose Sharks. I don't know every player. I know quite a few players, but bringing in another big body would be interesting. It's just a lot of these players that the Leafs are either speculated looking at or people are looking at for the Leafs aren't really these veterans or guys that are 100% going to produce. So it comes down to a boom or bust. The last thing you want to do is make your big trade for a guy that hasn't proven himself and him not to have a breakout till a year after or the year after that, while the Leafs are in this window, while they're trying to push this team into the second round, into the third, into the finals, like we've seen the Edmonton Oilers do. We've seen the Vancouver Canucks make it back into the playoffs, make the second round, go into 7. But this Toronto team seems like they're stuck in the window of, hey, we're going to either lose in the first round or lose in 5 or 6 in the second round, even though we've only seen that once in the last 20 years. But it seems like a lot of these guys that I would want the Leafs to have is someone that's a veteran that's been around that can instantly produce and not be more of a project piece.
Yeah, definitely. The Leafs are at that point now where they're in win now mode. I know we keep saying it and they don't win nothing, but they are in it. They're in win now mode. And they're just trying to get guys that have been in the playoffs, have been to, the top, have been either Stanley Cup champion or have been fighting for it late in the year. So that they can share their experience with the young guys who have never reached the peak yet, and I think that's what they really need. Just not someone who is going to produce a lot on the ice. Yes, if you get a guy who can come in, get you 30 points off on the bottom 6, yes, that's perfect. He's 33 to 35 years old, or even 30 to 35 years old. I think it would be that would be the perfect fit for Toronto. I think that's what they need. They need an older guy, like when Montreal. I'm bringing Montreal up here in a Toronto video. When Montreal made that fantastic run to the Stanley Cup Finals, who did they have in their locker room to teach them, to get them going, to say, we need to win this? Obviously, it was Corey Perry. Poor guy can't win one, but that's the type of guy that Toronto needs when they're deep in the playoffs, when they're struggling, when they're down in a series. They need that older guy to, light a fire underneath them to just get them there, because those guys, they say, I'm coming to the end of my career, I want to win a cup before I retire, and you guys are my key to the case. And it just seems like they haven't really had that. Yes, they have John Tavares, who's an amazing captain, but they need multiple guys like that in the locker room.
I think the Leafs should trade a first-round pick to get Corey Perry. Obviously, you get a one-way ticket straight to the Stanley Cup Finals. You might lose in it, but at least the Leafs would make it that far. I mean, we've seen Corey Perry jump around this entire league from team to team. We've seen him lose with Tampa. We've seen him lose with Montreal, which feels really good. We've seen him lose with the Oilers. We've seen him lose with the Dallas Stars. So maybe Corey Perry to Toronto is the missing piece, and maybe you might be onto something. I've seen someone say Blake Wheeler. He seemed to slow down quite a bit with the New York Rangers, but those are the guys I'm looking at, guys that can come into your bottom 6, maybe not as old as someone like Wheeler, but someone like that, like you said, could come in, be that leader, and looking at the young guys saying, hey, you have 10 more years left, I have a year or two, help me win this cup.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely what they need in Toronto, and that's what's going to excel them to the next level. They're not going to say get you 40 goals or 60 goals like an Austin Matthews, but they're definitely going to be that difference maker for them, and that's definitely what they need. And we're looking in the chat here. What are some of the guys saying? He's saying JVR looked way too slow in the Leafs Bruins series unless signed for $900K. That was John B. Yeah, he is older. Was he 35 years old now? He's not going to be like he was 25 again. He's a different player now. He's evolved with his age, and getting him in at a vet minimum contract is the perfect contract, because then Toronto doesn't need to spend all this money, but they're still getting a decent bottom 6 player in return.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like, it's going to really come down to a trade, I'm thinking, with this last position as a forward. Like I said, Pontus Holmberg's a guy that looked great during the regular season into the playoffs. He's a young guy waiting to grow with this team. I think you could throw him to the Wolves, getting him on this fourth line, bringing in a guy like maybe Connor Dewar to play with him, Ryan Reeves, have a bit of leadership down there with him, have some size, physicality for checking, give them something to work with on the fourth line. Maybe you move on from David Camp with a guy like Nick Robertson, you attach a guy like Connor Timmins. That works out to about $3.5–4 million in cap space going out. Slap a pick on it, slap a prospect, whatever it takes. Find that guy for $4 million. Find someone you can fit into this organization. One guy I would absolutely love is Joe Pavelski, but I don't think he's going to come back to hockey. But someone like that, someone that can get you these wins, someone that's going to step up in the big moments, maybe even a guy, go out and get someone that can score 30 goals for you. The Leafs need to do something. As long as you have Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, a 32-year-old Chris Tanev, you are in a win now mode. And I think Treliving is going to start thinking like this soon.
Yeah, definitely. I just threw a poll up in the chat. Who's your favorite offseason contract so far? We got Tanev, we got Domi, we got Hakanpää, we got OEL. We want to see your guys' thoughts here. You know, so far, Tanev's winning by a landslide here. Nobody's picked OEL. What's wrong with OEL? Come on, give him a shot here. But, Mark, it looks like a lot of people are happy with Tanev. I mean, I know me and you are happy about Tanev. He's going to be such a big impact guy for this Toronto Maple Leafs blue line.
One thing I will say, I know a lot of people aren't loving this OEL, and let's see, can I get this number up? See, can I convince the fans during live? So with this, OEL is a guy, yes, he's not going to be the most offensive sound, but if you watched any of this Florida Panthers and Edmonton Oilers finals, OEL was a huge piece for this team. Yes, he might have brain farts from here and here, but he has the defensive guys to play with. He might play with a guy like Jake McCabe. He could play with Tanev, but he's the power play quarterback we don't have. Yes, Morgan Riley can get this done. Yes, he can move the puck well, but OEL is an upgraded offensive version of Riley. Obviously, Riley is better all around due to his defensive game and his two-way game, but OEL is a guy that has a bomb of a shot. He's going to quarterback. When players are pinched in their own zone, he can make that first exit pass to really break things up, and I think people are going to be really surprised. Yes, 4 years is a long time, but OEL is going to take fans by surprise, and I think he might become a fan favorite maybe halfway through the season.
Yeah, definitely, Mark. You got him up to 8% in the poll. I mean, that's some good sell job there. But I think OEL is going to be fun as well. I think always having that offensive guy who can make an impact, whether it's on the power play, whether it's 5-on-5, is always fun to see. That big shot defenseman. Even, you know, that passing ability of OEL is definitely going to help out this Leafs blue line and definitely help their power play as well. And I'm excited for this guy. Like you said, he was a big piece in Florida's playoffs, in the Stanley Cup, and I think having him was definitely one of the best additions so far this offseason by Brad Treliving. But, you know, we started out with Hakanpää tied with Domi, which was pretty crazy. But Domi's numbers are going up. He's at 35%, but we love Domi here. We love Domi on the channel. Obviously, he's definitely, I think he might have been my favorite guy so far that the Leafs signed, because I'm just a huge Domi fan. I think he makes an impact whatever position he plays on the ice, and even that video we put up on Twitter after signing, I mean, what a beauty Max Domi is.
Oh, that video was just incredible. Seeing him, Leafs PSA, putting that video out, the Wolf of Wall Street, the Wolf of Toronto, Max Domi. This is one of the guys, I feel like, yes, a lot of players love their teams. They cheer for their team. They're playing for their team. But this guy would run in front of a semi-truck for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We've seen it on the ice. He goes up people twice his size. He goes into corners with 3 guys. Yes, Domi's not a guy that's going to put up 100 points for you, but his impact on the ice in the locker room, just seeing the behind the scenes with the Toronto Maple Leafs, everyone loves this guy. Everyone loved his dad and Ty Domi as well. And I cannot wait to see the picture finally of one day Max Domi hoisting the cup with Ty behind him smiling.
Yeah, I know. That would just be an amazing picture. One to put up on the wall for sure, Mark. I mean, I think just hearing him say, you know, he wants to win for his dad, wants to do what his dad couldn't do. I mean, that's all the motivation that you need to try to win a Stanley Cup here in Toronto. And I think this guy's going to bounce around this lineup a lot this year. I'm really excited for it. I think Berube's going to have him all over the ice. Maybe we'll even see him on the blue line. Who knows? Because he's been excelling everywhere he goes on the ice. But I love Max Domi. I could talk about him for hours. He's such a good player on the ice and is such a good, fun guy off the ice as well. And Ryan, he's thrown another trade at us here, Mark. He says Mitch Marner for Adam Larson and Shane Wright and a first-round pick. What do you think about that, Mark? I know Shane Wright's kind of looking like a little bit of a bust right now, but you can't call him that. He's still young. He still has time. But Adam Larson as well could be fun.
See, the biggest thing with this is, yes, you're getting a lot of value. You're getting a former top 3 pick. You're getting a first-round pick. And you're getting a defenseman. But it seems like this defense is getting a little of a logjam now already. I mean, Hakanpää, if he ever gets signed, if they ever announce that he's signed, this guy is coming in as the 7th defenseman. So bringing in a guy like Adam Larson, you have to move someone else. I mean, when you're looking through, Benoit's been awesome on the left side. If you're looking at the right side, Timothy Liljegren could be on the third line pairing with him. So it's going to get interesting. I wouldn't even touch the defense. If Mitch Marner was to be moved, yes, you could package in a guy like Liljegren and go for that huge number 2, number 3 defenseman with a forward. But I think keeping Marner for the next little bit while his value is still low, working him back into it. Maybe Mitch Marner comes back on a vengeance, scores 100 points, gets back to that kind of just Selke nomination kind of play. But I think moving him out for a young piece, a first and an aging defenseman that has a hard time finding a spot in this lineup might be not enough.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you. I'm about to throw another poll up here. So hold on. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. It's not working out very good for me here. Not a good multitasker. But I'm throwing up a poll here. Who should the Leafs add next? We got JVR, Tyler Johnson, Daniel Sprong, and we're going to throw Alex Nylander in there. So make sure to go vote on that poll. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to discuss it. But yeah, Mark, it seems like the Leafs are looking pretty good so far. I know we got the regular season to still come up, and we're not even into next season yet. We're not even through the off season yet, but the team's looking good. I'm excited to see what this new blue line's going to do, and I hope that this can transition into actual play, not just on paper right now, because on paper it looks pretty good. But the forward work that's going to happen over this next little while is definitely going to be fun.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's going to be heavily criticized on how the Leafs play in that first 2 weeks to a month of the season. If we see Mitch Marner come out cold out of the gates, the rumors are going to fly on guys like this. But overall, like I said, we need a left wing. We need that one more player to either play on the second line or third line, depending on where Bobby McMann is. I think McMahon's a guy that's going to make a huge jump in a system like Berube's, but maybe you need that more veteran guy to move up and down the lineup. Maybe a guy with more speed to play next to John Tavares, or a center to play that third line. So it's going to be interesting. I know with the poll going, I wish you put Phil Kessel in there because technically he hasn't retired. Technically he's still out there. He was training with Abbotsford, so maybe Phil the Thrill still in shape. But I think we're going to see a lot of speculation going into next season, and if they come out of the gates cold, it's going to be bad.
Oh yeah, we're going to see everything happen if they come out of the gates cold next season. I mean, if they're playing Montreal first and they lose, I can't imagine what the media is going to run with after that game. But I think it's going to be fun to see what happens. It's definitely fun to be an NHL fan, a fun time. I'm really excited to see how this team is going to progress. And like you said, adding that speed is definitely going to be key because they lost Noah Gregor, who was one of my most underrated Leafs last year. I thought this guy, every time he got into the lineup, he looked really good. He got in on the forecheck, he used his speed to his ability, and he scored a couple of goals at it. And I hated to see that guy go because I thought he was playing very well in Toronto last year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Noah Gregor opened the scoring for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I did not have that on my bingo card to start last season, but I thought Gregor was good. I thought he had a lot of flashy moments. I thought there was moments where he looked like the fastest player in the world by miles. But the biggest thing with Noah Gregor is I feel like they have the bottom line of ready. They have Connor Dewar that's going to come back. They have the top six pretty much filled out. It's just that third line left wing, and I'm not sure if Noah Gregor's really at the point of his career, and I really hope he gets to it because he was an awesome player to watch. But I don't know if he was the missing piece maybe on that second or third line.
Yeah, I think maybe giving Nick Robertson a shot here at the beginning of the season would be fun to see. I think having him there to kind of be that, third line left wings, play him for the first 5 games, give him a little stint, and if, you don't like what you see, that's the time to get rid of him, because I wouldn't want to trade him right now, Mark. Yes, you'd get a decent return back from him, but then see him go to another team where it seems like always whenever somebody leaves the Leafs, they just go off. I mean, we've seen Kadri, we've seen a number of players do this. Phil Kessel, obviously the notable one. But I think, if we see this, Nick Robinson gets traded, say, to Philly for that Morgan Frost hypothetical trade that someone put in the chat, I think he could light it up in Philly, which, which would aggravate Leafs fans so much. But the poll winner was Daniel Sprong, Mark. I wasn't expecting that one. I thought JVR was going to win it, and he came last. And Alex Nylander tied for second, which I think would be really fun as well. But we're going to answer one more question here from Ryan before we take off for the night. He says, how about Mitch Marner to Pittsburgh for Evgeny Malkin, a first-round pick and a second-round pick? What do you think about that, Mark? I think I'd rather see the Crosby one over the Evgeny Malkin one.
Yeah, definitely want Crosby more. I mean, I think Kyle Dubas, even though it's hard to break up that core in Pittsburgh, getting a young piece like Mitch Marner into that team might elevate Pittsburgh. And this is what I lead to of not wanting to move Mitch yet. Yes, his value is at an all-time low. Yes, he came off a terrible season where he still put up points, but he looked invisible in the playoffs. But this is a guy that has the potential to be the best or second best player on the Leafs. I know it's an opinion that not a lot of people is going to like. I know people are going to flame me for it, but I do think keeping Mitch at this very moment is what the Leafs need to do. It's hard to hear, but that's what they're going to end up doing. We might see him traded, like I said, 2 weeks in, a month into the season. Maybe he gets traded at deadline, but I can promise you right now, I'm not a betting man, but I would bet that Mitch Marner starts in the starting lineup game 1 next season.
Yeah, I'm definitely hopping on that bet with you, because I think there's no way he gets traded this offseason, but I think some way, somehow at the deadline, the Vegas Golden Knights are going to make it work, and Mitch Marner's going to go to Vegas because somehow they have the luck on their side, whether it's with all the casinos they have down in Vegas. Who knows what's on their side right now, but definitely they've been pulling a lot of crazy trades off, but I don't think Mitch Marner goes anywhere. I think the Leafs are going to have a hot start. That's my, initial thought, and then the whole Marner scapegoat thing from last playoffs goes out the window, and the media just start hyping him up again. But we want to give a huge shout out to everybody who's been here in the chat this whole stream. I mean, this is probably our second or third stream. We haven't done one in over 6 months, and we just said, hey, let's just do one today. Let's do it. Let's talk about the Leafs, see what the guys are saying. I believe at one point we had over 110 people in here, Mark. I can't believe the support you guys are showing us here on the channel. And if you want to see us hit our goal of 4,000 subscribers before Sunday, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button if you're not already. We love seeing all you guys showing your support here on the channel. It means the world. It's why we do what we do. It's why we put these Leafs and NHL videos out to you guys every day. And we just gotta give a huge shout out to you guys, because without you, we wouldn't be here doing this stuff. But I've been your host, Casey, alongside my co-host, Mark Pye. Make sure to go check out a video that Mark did earlier today. It's up on the channel. Leave from this, go to that once we end the stream. But appreciate all your guys' support and everything. And, as always, I've been Casey with my co-host, Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.